185 Miles South, a hardcore punk rock podcast.
Welcome to 185 Miles South, a hardcore punk rock podcast. My name is Zach Nelson. Just getting this started. To keep it quick, I just wanted to say this has been influenced by two podcasts, Turned Out a Punk, and also 100 Words or Less. Both great hardcore punk rock podcasts, and basically I listen to those, and there's a lot of people that I want to hear interviewed and represented, and so that's what this is all about. We'll see how it transpires. This first interview took place on March 26th, 2019. It's with my friend Joe Rivas, and Joe's a dude of one generation older than myself and my friends, and he was always one of those older dudes that was, he wasn't old at the time, he was probably mid-20s, but he was like one of the dudes that was really nice and welcoming, and when you're a kid coming into something as intimidating as hardcore and punk rock, that outstretched hand really means a lot, and it stays with you, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do Joe early, because it's so important. Now, Joe played in a punk band called Burning Dog in the early 90s that was super awesome, and there was a ton of bands in the Oxnard area in the early mid-90s, and carrying on, of course. They were great and didn't get the representation they needed. Burning Dog put out a 7-inch and then also a CD. Both are awesome. The 7-inch was songs off of the couple demos that they did, which were really awesome and some of my favorite stuff to listen to when I was like a freshman in high school. Joe also roadied along and worked for the bands No Motiv and Good Riddance, and he never dropped out of punk or hardcore. He's a lifer, and he does a band now called Out of Trust, which is based out of the Oxnard Ventura area, and has lots of scene veterans from the same era generation as him, and that's it. Alrighty, here we are with Joe Rivas. Joe is a super important person for people my generation of Oxnard and hardcore kids. Often the go-between peacemaker, all-around good dude that befriended all of us when we were young and no one necessarily believed in us. So I would say, top 3, maybe top 1 most important person for my generation. So we're going to start this off with him. And no pressure at all, Joe, but I'm hoping you can give me the definitive history of Nardcore. How did it start?
How did it start? I don't know. I wasn't there in the beginning.
When did you pop around? So we were talking earlier today, and you talked about meeting John from Ill Repute in 1981.
81, yeah. I met John at the beach, at Port Hueneme Beach, on the pier. 81, it was my birthday. He told me I was a cool kid. I thought that was cool, because he had funky hair and, he was a surfer dude and whatever. And then I didn't get to really know him until much later, 88 or so. I guess that's not much later, but that's when we became friends, because he was good friends with my brother, Davi. They were jamming together, sort of, like after post transitions time, so they John and my brother played bass in many bands back then. And I was just a roadie.
In 88, you were a roadie.
I was a roadie for my brother, for any band my brother was in.
Yeah, so tell us some of those bands.
Disordered Youth, which was the first band that he was in, which was a Hueneme band, Hueneme Oxnardish band. Back then there was still sort of a little bit of definition between towns. But I became fast friends with the drummer named Steve Busher, and so then I just became his roadie. So I would go with him in his car, his truck later on when he got a truck, and set up his drums wherever they played and all that stuff. And we went all over SoCal to do shows and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I didn't, I had always played guitar. My dad started us when we were little kids. But I just didn't have a desire to be in a band myself until it was going to be late 88 when a friend of ours, John Lowry, was singing in this band called Dignity, and he died in a diving accident in the harbor, Chellan's Harbor.
Jesus, well, tell the story.
Yeah, I don't know much of what happened. It's like his air mixture.
Oh, diving.
Not
like, yeah.
Sorry.
Diving under the water, not into the water.
Yeah, yeah. And his air mixture got messed up, and he passed out on the bottom of the harbor and died. So the band asked me if I would play the show with them because they knew that I played, and I was friends with everybody, and so I said, yeah, sure, why not? And so I learned what songs that they had, and we did a couple covers, like Stepping Stone, and I think everybody's at one time has covered that song or not in the Nard. And then I was hooked, and I played my first show in December of '88, and that was Dignity, which just basically became Burning Dog 4 or 5 years later after some members dropped out and others were added, with the in-between name of Topless Green Onions. Sure. Yeah, we got that name off a cardboard box in my dad's garage where we were practicing. We were trying to think of a name, and our drummer Keebler at that time said, hey, how about Topless Green Onions? It says it on that box right there. And we're like, okay, Red Hot Chili Peppers were big at the time, so
sure.
that fit.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit about would you call the Burning Dog and the Clenched Fist and all that second wave Nardcore?
I would say second wave. Yeah, I mean, it for the bands themselves, we were certainly the second wave, and maybe we were really kind of third wave. We'll go with second.
Let's talk about the importance of those bands in our area.
Yeah, I don't know that I could speak to how important we were.
they were very important to us. I mean, we're very lucky as younger kids to have good local bands, right?
Yeah, we Burning Dog, Clenched Fist, FAY, Stalefish, just DY as well, Disordered Youth. In Ventura, there was Arch Enemy, Narthex Structure, a few other bands like that where these, sort of the bridge from the original, the Grand Four of Ill Repute, Dr. No, Stalag 15, and Aggression. And you throw in False Confession and a few of the other bands too. But we were that bridge in between those... your generation, the next generation, the third generation, if you will, of bands. And we kept, I don't know, we were the torchbearers, I guess. It's hard for me to talk about that because it's like I've always not tried to take any credit for any of that stuff. I was just doing what felt good.
Yeah.
And so playing shows and, backyard parties, and because... especially in the early 90s, that's pretty much all there was. There was, very few venues to play at, and not a whole lot of scene, if you will, that had carried on because of the late 80s and all the fights and Nazi shit that was going on and all that stuff. And then the transition from that into what the mid to late 90s provided.
So what was the catalyst, though, for all those bands being around kind of at the same time? Was it just that naturally you got to the age that you do bands, and all these people ended up being the same age at the same time? And
yeah, I mean,
ended up having
we're
good
all
people?
pretty close of those bands that I mentioned, that we're all pretty close to the same age. In fact, most of us are part of the same crew, especially, Burning Dog and Clench Fist. But even just a little bit later with Dick Circus, because John Carrar, I grew up with Tom Edwards, the singer from Dick Circus, and John was part of the Beach crew, the Wanami crew, and then branched off and became John, who he is now. But he was part of all of that in the beginning. I guess I got John by 5 years or so. I think he's we'll say Missing 23rd is your generation, but I'm going to put Dick Circus and Fooey in that, just slightly in between.
Definitely.
Like the tail end of our, not our heyday, but our first go at it. Numbskull was doing shows already, but there was, again, with Eddie, finding venues was always difficult, especially in Oxnard. Random stuff, the Tapatio and the El Fiesta on Oxnard Boulevard, both of those places.
So let's talk about the importance of the localism comp, because it documented these bands.
Yeah.
Right?
So Fred Hammer put together that comp. He had been doing the It's Alive fanzine for, I don't know, maybe 10 years prior to that, I think. Mm-hmm. I'm going to guess about 10 years. And then he started doing his cut sheets, the localism, the three-page booklet, 4-page thing that he was doing for a while there. And then that led into the localism comp, because there was all this energy that was going on in a lot of active bands. That makes me think of some of the other more Ventura bands, Leviticus and Irony. They were part of that second generation as well, which became on that comp was it was the guys from those bands in that one band, which is Chuck, from now the drummer for Ill Repute, and Pat Cody and like that crew of guys. So I declined now. It was fun. I think Fred used Mumbles. We just, we had recorded with John Lyons at the living room in Santa Barbara or Goleta, which was a all ages venue run by some like community organization thing.
Yeah.
You joined a club, sort of like what they were doing at not the Anti Club, but at Gilman, but nowhere near as.
It wasn't as punk rock organized.
As punk rock organized, or what's the word I'm looking for?
It wasn't as punk as Gilman, right? Like they did a bunch of things there.
They did a bunch of things.
It was like it was more of a community organized thing.
Yeah, but yeah, because there was Hawaiian bands and all kinds of stuff that played there. But Gilman got too punk for themselves.
Sure.
The whole 1994 thing, and the great No Motiv song about that.
We don't talk about that song.
Okay, maybe not so great. But yeah, so. But
it was important to get those songs down, because one of the shames is that these bands didn't do records, and unfortunately, even CD, because. One of my favorite hardcore bands from the 90s is a band called Powerhouse, and their best record only came out on CD, and it's lost to history. You don't hear people talking about it, and it's like so important to do like vinyl releases. And Burning Dog, you did a 7-inch.
We did the 7-inch.
It's like the precursor to the CD, but everyone else didn't really put out records except for Fooey, No Motiv, and a lot of the Ventura bands. But as far as like the Oxnard bands.
The Oxnard bands, no. I mean, Clench Fist did a demo, a 6-song demo, which was phenomenal, but you never...
Yeah. And why not take the next step? Yeah, well,
the opportunity for partying was
sure
was dominated a lot of our lives. I mean, me included, especially back then. Until I had my bottom, and I got clean in '96. I've been straight edge since, but there was a lot of party, and so there was not a lot of motivation. We were in bands. Not we. A lot of people were in bands just to play parties, to have access to drugs or beer, or girls.
Or just to have fun and rage, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing
wrong with that.
If music loses its fun, then what's the point?
But yeah, exactly, but that's why a lot of that was never captured. Because to capture that stuff, that means that there had to be somebody driving the band to go record, and then somebody driving the band to do the next step of trying to press something, or with Burning Dog, we did all those demos. We made demo tapes. And Clenched Fist sort of did. They just, did the, we sent it away for professional duplication, where Clenched Fist was just, dubbing tapes at the time. That's why most of the versions of that cassette now just sound terrible, because it's a copy of a copy of a copy. So we lost a lot,
Yeah.
But there's still, I got a pretty massive archive of old stuff.
I know you do.
I digitized cassettes and that sort of thing, and they sound. They don't sound great because they're copies of copies, or the tape has degraded to the point by the time I finally digitized it that it just it's warped. It's bad.
Yeah.
You can't bake cassette tapes like you can reel-to-reels.
Right.
So
it's just that these were all very, very good, legit bands, and they're kind of lost to history.
Yeah.
Except for the Localism Comp, where most of the bands get one song, right?
Right.
So that's all.
I think all the bands got only one. Maybe Ill Repute got 2 songs.
Yeah. And
that version of Ill Repute there, that mid '90s Ill Repute.
That's a totally different version of Ill Repute.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite bands ever.
Yeah.
Is the Tony singing. He has one of my favorite voices.
That Bleed.
The Bleed record is amazing.
Bleed record is so good. Yeah. The And Now record that I played on with Forrest is it was a whole lot of fun. I just don't know how well received that ever was.
Well, Bleed was an amazing record because, kind of like how I talked about that Powerhouse band before, they had this unique sound. It was this New York hardcore sound, and then the dude was doing the punk rock cheat beat, but he was doing the NoFX do that, do that, do that, do that, do that, do that.
Yeah.
And so you can't replicate that sound because no one is psycho enough to do it. And it worked for that band, right?
Right.
And the same thing with Bleed is you have Tony, who has this awesome, soulful gutter voice.
Yeah.
Mixed with Nashaya, who's playing the most bubblegum new school octave leads.
Yeah.
And you have the lip key, the NoFX beat, right?
Yeah.
Do that.
With Jimmy Callahan's, driving Ill Repute bass, with that traditional.
So you just have it's something that cannot be replicated, and it's very weird.
Yeah.
But awesome. That's why that record is so special.
Kicked off the bus.
That's a great song. So, we jumped right into you being in bands, but when did you start going to shows?
Yeah, the first show I went to was a Christian rock band, and then I can't remember the punk band that played with them.
Let's jump to what you remember.
Yeah.
What's the first band you remember?
The first show I remember, it was Ill Repute. Yeah, at the community center.
And what year do you think that was?
I don't know, 86, 87.
So how were they in 86 or 87?
Old.
Yeah. so they,
No,
what happens next comes out in 1984, which is their classic.
Yeah.
And you're talking about seeing them 2 years later. So are they dabbling in the stuff that got caught on Transition? Or
yeah, they caught. That's a good summation there. Yeah, they it was sort of in between because they had stopped. The band's never ever broken up. They just stopped playing for a time, and then somebody asked them to play a show, and everyone's in town. Fanoff's not in Fiji surfing or whatever.
Right.
So then they all just make it happen. Carl was still playing with them then. The community center, was a Powerline. I think it was Powerline. I think that was the production company that was going on then, that was putting on all the shows at the Oxnard Community Center. So there was a slew of them from '84 to '87, when there was like a massive fight and some bad blood between Dr. No and Aggression, shit talking from stage and that kind of stuff, and then shows just stopped there, and then.
So how many kids were there at the show, you think?
5.
That's crazy.
500,
so it's just raging.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah. So
this is not in the main hall. This is in the side, the flat floor.
Sure,
hall,
but it's 500 kids at a punk rock show in Austin in 1986.
Yeah.
When that's like a lot.
It seemed like that many to me. It could be less than that, but it certainly felt like that. I was terrified.
Sure.
So
you should be when you start going to shows, right?
Yeah. It's a scary thing. You don't have the protection of your parents, although you don't want your protection of your parents because you're rebelling. And I'm not that. I don't need you. Fuck you. I can do my own thing. And then, you have that. But that's also when you grow these bonds with your friends. That that the guy standing next to you, your friend, is gonna. Well, you hope that he's gonna be there for you. Sometimes that's not the case, and they.
Yeah. So, Ill Repute. Yeah. They were still raging.
Yeah, they were still great. Yeah. Doing, that was the first time I heard them do American Girl cover. Like I thought, hey, I know that song.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of the other stuff. Well, I knew the songs. Like, cause we would play, lip sync in the garage, like me and like our crew.
Mm-hmm.
In the early 80s, we were in the Boy Scouts together, so we would all do this like fake band, because we didn't have amps, so we couldn't, play, and nobody had an acoustic guitar or an electric guitar for that matter at that time. So we just had sticks and brooms and pretended we were singing these songs. So I knew a bunch of the songs, but seeing American Girl, seeing these guys that I know live somewhere around me, I think that's probably the most striking thing, especially for hardcore in general. But that that these guys are
they're dudes.
They're just dudes that are from your neighborhood or the next street over or several blocks over or whatever. But they're close enough that you can do that. You can do the same thing that they're doing. You just have to have some motivation and drive, and
and you knew
learn how to play.
You knew then that you wanted to do bands. If you knew before you saw them,
I knew I wanted to
be involved in music.
To be involved in it, we became friends with Bob and Henry early on, 86 somewhere in there, from Aggression. Bob was selling us pot, so and then Henry lived basically catty corner, or the backyards were catty corner with Forrest from Clench Fist.
Mm-hmm.
So his parents lived literally over the fence basically. So there's these guys, these already legends at that time.
Sure.
And they just hang out,
Yeah.
We did our first show. When I say we, I wasn't playing in the band, but the first band that we were all sort of associated with was BSOD. We made a joke. It was Big Samoan on drums because our friend Pico would play drums on it, but his Bad Sense of Direction was the name of the band, and it was Rob Calvert singing my brother playing bass, several different guitarists, but mainly it was Forrest, and then Pika playing drums. And we put together this party, I'm going to say this is early 87, in Pika's garage. And we invited our friends Irony and Leviticus to come over and play that from Ventura. And and then Henry showed up to the party, and like everyone was like, super nervous, and because BSOD was playing, they played Rat Race, they covered Rat Race, the Aggression song, and they like. After they played, they go up to Henry like, oh, sorry, we didn't. No, that was great. You guys played it twice as fast as us. It was super. Henry was always like that, super posy.
But that's one of the things I wanted to ask you is your personality has always been very welcoming, right, to people you don't know. And was there someone that was like that to you, like in the 80s, that made you feel good? And you decided, like, I'm going to be that guy. That when, like, the 90s is also different when you're coming around, because it's, like, post-punk breaking. So there was a lot of bullshit and riffraff, right? So I understand a little bit of, like, the attitude of, like, oh, these young kids are posers, like this and that. Yeah. But you were always
everyone wanted to be Green Day, right? Because Offspring or something, yeah.
Sure. But you were friendly to, like, newer kids that are just trying to figure everything out.
Yeah, I guess, I've certainly had my share of being a asshole, which we can share that story later. But, yeah, like, John, Fanoff, Henry himself, and especially Tony Cortez, Ill Repute, provided that feeling to me, specifically to me, that, we're just guys, and come hang out with us, and let's make this all happen, and let's hey, you need some help with this? Here, you guys need a guitar cable or an amp? You can borrow this. You can, all that kind of stuff, and that's sort of how that just came to me. Like that's just kind of what I decided to do. That also came from my grandpa. My grandpa played upright bass in all kinds of bands, and big band swing stuff. And when I would ride around with him as a kid, like, he knew everybody, like I recognized that he, people didn't just say hi to him, just, like, hey, what's up, like, they wanted to talk to him. Like, they were excited that hey, Bob, how are you? My grandpa's name is Bob. How are you, Bob? And they really, it was genuine, and he was very generous with his time, and I watched him make whoever he was talking to was the most important person, period. Like there were no other distractions around. So I tried to model how I behave after that. Now, that's not to say, like I said, I don't have asshole moments.
Do you want to talk about that?
No. I mean, it is.
Tell your asshole story.
It is what it is. Well, okay, yeah. The headphones?
Sure.
Yeah. So, we.
I don't think that was an asshole moment, though. Really.
I think it was. What year was that? 80?
It was 1999.
99? Was it that late? Okay. So, in 99, I had the studio above the Ink House there in Ventura. We called it the Ghost Chamber, where Roger and Armand basically learned how to do what they ended up, doing these days, which is, they're both phenomenal engineers, producers. They were already incredible talents, and they already had done a little bit of that. But we had this space where we could just focus on recording the whole band ourselves. We had isolation and all that sort of stuff. Well, sort of isolation in that place, but so we recorded in Control, and you guys were doing
the Nardtro, right?
Nardtro, right? Yeah.
Which is a lot of gang vocals.
Gang vocals, right? And then we only had so many headphones, and somebody broke the headphones. or bent them out of shape, and I was tired. And that stuff costs money, and then when it gets fucked up, you're like, oh fuck.
Of course.
And then it didn't help that when I go out there and I start going off and like, who fucking did this? The actual culprit doesn't actually say anything and just lets it go.
Sure.
And then I go off on poor Tony. Yeah. So that wasn't a very proud moment.
Yeah, but that's understandable, right?
Yeah.
At the end of a recording session, everyone's pretty burnt out. By the time you make it to gang vocals, everyone's pretty burnt out, right?
Yeah.
Plus, that was the first time that we were recording too. Not individually, but as a band.
Yeah.
So we'd all recorded before.
Right. Yeah.
And hey, at least you were giving some feedback, unlike John Lyons, right? So do you like that one? Do you like that one?
Yeah, I guess so. Let's just move on.
Yeah.
Thanks, John. Thanks for all your help there. Yeah. But that was, there's moments dabbled in there like that I behave poorly, and I recognize it. That doesn't make it any better for anybody.
No, but that's someone snappy, and that's someone not. That's not like you were genuinely being an asshole.
Yeah.
Like that's just having a bad moment. So
There's only one band that I was ever like always an asshole to.
Who's that?
I can't even think of their name. What was the Christian punk band?
I couldn't tell you.
Officer Negative.
Oh, yeah.
Officer Negative.
Officer
It was
Negative.
really just Chad because he got all uppity with me, and I wasn't gonna let that fly because he was fucking with some other band that was playing.
In what?
I
what
don't
essence? Know. Like heckling them?
No, like trying to rush them, or telling them they're not going to be able to play their set because he's running the show and he wasn't really running anything, and so then I got in his face.
God was in charge.
What's that?
I thought God was in charge.
Well, yeah, in Jesus, yeah, in the Holy Ghost. So I became the devil, and from that point forth, I've yet to talk to that guy again.
Wow, Joe has an enemy.
Well, I wouldn't say he's an enemy. He's just worthless.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I never knew this side of you.
Yeah, that guy.
So let's jump back to Burning Dog.
Okay,
so you've known Joey Lipke forever? Or why did you decide to do a 7-inch before you recorded the LP? Because the 7-inch is it's the demo, right?
The 7-inch is the
It had
demo
already been recorded.
remixed.
Yeah, because you took off the woes on Talk Boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Fatal error.
Oh, God, those woes were terrible. It was a fatal error to record it in the first place.
The woes are sick.
Yeah, so we had those master tapes. Burning Dog was playing a lot. I'm not going to say all the time, but we're playing a lot locally and a little bit out of town. Numbskull was booking us in San Luis Obispo and Santa Cruz and San Francisco, and then we did some LA shows in Lancaster. But they, at the time, Joey Lipke, who started the Edge Records, was reformed Stalag 13, dropping the 13, and they were just Stalag, and it was really just Joey who was one of. He wasn't the first drummer for Stalag 13, but he was the first drummer to record the Stalag 13, and Blake Cruz. So that was the only original members, and then they had these other LA guys who were great. Ended up being great guys, John Chuck and Rob McNulty. But Joey put out that record, and then he got Tony excited about playing it again, and so then Tony and Jim and he and Nashaya did the Bleed record.
Ill Repute Bleed. And got No Motive.
Well, No Motive happened after we did the 7-inch. Because we had already recorded that. No Motive hadn't played their first show yet, and they were going to play with us at the National Guard Armory in Ventura, and then Pat had his appendicitis, so they had to cancel that show. whoever else played. Everybody played. Fixated. Jughead's Revenge was the headliner. So Joey wanted to put out our 7-inch because we had this sort of buzz, if you will.
Yeah, you wanted to get something out immediately.
Yeah.
Right?
And so we just used, we already have these 18 songs recorded, so just pick the, however many can fit on a 7-inch. What was there, 6 on there? 6, 7 songs?
Well, 6.5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So
with our song, that could be all 18 of them. Really,
well, you could have done Skip Groove on one side.
Right.
And then a bunch of punk songs on the other.
Right. Yeah, and so we did the 7-inch, and then I went on tour as the roadie when I was working for Good Riddance. And then I came back and we actually recorded our full length, which just came out only on CD. And it was a train wreck. And by that time, No Motiv had been signed, and Joey was putting all his focus on them and none on us. So that's why, although if you listen to Cynical and then the No Motive record Cynical and then the Scarred, which was released without their permission pretty much, which is their demos.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different demos.
Yeah, the Scarred one is, but yes. Cynical they actually went in the studio to try to record that.
Yeah.
And, they did record that in an actual studio, and they spent a lot of money on it, and it wasn't as received as well as it should have been, because I think there's some great songs on that, but it was received well enough that catapulted them into the next, their next stage when they got signed with Vagrant and did all that stuff. But they
didn't hit right then.
Yeah. But Joey put us on the back burner and didn't spend any money on us. So where did you record? We recorded at this place called Technical Ecstasy I'm going to say it's in Chatsworth.
Okay.
It was very scary. Crappy studio, and we recorded at ADAT because that was the thing at the time. 16 track. And then we mixed it at some other place. I can't think of the name of it.
But it came out fine. You're
unhappy with it? But like, for example, like if you listen to it, like when they mastered it, we weren't part of the mastering process, so we didn't get to sit there with the guy when he mastered it. And you can hear like on Free, which is the second song on the record. Yeah, second song. Like and a lot of mastering guys do this, but they only listen to one channel.
Sure.
So the other channel is blaring.
Okay.
And then it compresses, and then you hear the compression squash it when everything else starts, when the other tracks start.
Sure.
And then it just you get that. So the whole record sounds like that, and we weren't all that happy with it.
Well, if we knocked John Lyons once, we should give John Lyons credit now. No one walked out of there bummed on the recording, right?
No,
the king of consistency.
You got what you paid for,
and what you played like,
Yeah, he truly captured you.
Yeah.
He didn't give you any input on what you were doing, but he certainly gave you exactly what you got what you put into it.
Sure. Yeah, it was perfect when it was $10 an hour.
Yeah, and did John have a 16 track? I can't remember if that was a 16 or
I can't remember if it was an 8 or a 16. How did he survive charging $10 an hour for recordings? And so the first time I would have gone to him was $95, and it was $10 an hour. How did he survive?
I don't know.
I mean,
because he didn't have a real job.
No.
And he lived in that, in the space there, in the living room space.
Could have made people fork out a little bit more, a little more fair.
But see, that's John. That was his that punk rock persona that he carried over from the 90s as well. Although he's a Santa Barbara guy, so he had but maybe if he had lived closer to us, we would have been fast friends right away. I mean, we're always good, we're always friendly with him, but
yes,
he would have been part of our crew probably. Because
the
ethos was the same.
Yeah, we could have gotten that $8 an hour.
Right.
Look it up. So you met the Good Riddance guys when you were playing up on the Numbskull shows up in Santa Cruz.
So no. Well, I suppose I could have. I mean, because I worked for Eddie already. Eddie Numbskull was their tour manager. Right after Forgotten Country came out, so Eddie was their manager. So like the Strife 88 Fingers Louie Good Riddance tour, where that all fell apart for them, because 88 broke up. Strife and Good Riddance had issues with each other. Really, just Zoli and everybody else had issues with each other, but. Yeah.
So you met them when?
So
right then after God and Country.
So Good Riddance had a roadie. They had whatever he quit or they fired him. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly what happened, but he left and they needed a roadie. Eddie was their manager. He knew that I wasn't doing anything with my life, so he. Sent me to go work for them for they did a string of Southern California shows with it was Strife, AFI, Sick of It All, and Good Riddance.
Yeah, it was the first time I ever went to Showcase. Was that?
Yeah,
I think it was January '97.
Yeah. So
was that package?
That was my first run with them. Yeah, so it was from December. And then on New Year's Eve, we did the Good Riddance. We did the show at the what's the place down here? Soma. Yeah. Which the New Year's Eve show was at the sports arena.
Okay.
And then it was like the first Descendants returning after their hiatus or whatever.
Yeah, I went to one of those. They played a handful of nights.
Yeah. Well, it was New Year's Eve and. The Descendants played at midnight, and Good Riddance played. They did the opposite sides of the of the basketball ring there.
Sure. Yeah, it's awesome.
So Good Riddance was on one side; they finished their set, and then the Descendants started. So everyone was like ready, at least down on the floor.
On the side,
but everyone was at least down on the floor to watch Good Riddance, and that was I think that was a really good thing for them to have that slot.
Yeah.
And so then I did good, and then they hired me, and then we went. We did a full U.S. tour with Sick of It All and Ensign, Lifetime shows, a bunch of those, and then they fired me in Canada because I got road burn and I got all bitter.
You didn't flip the van?
I flipped the van, but they didn't fire me because I flipped the van. Yeah, I hit ice in New Mexico, in Moriarty, New Mexico, which is like 80 miles east of Albuquerque, and I hit ice and flipped the van flipped. Yeah. But we fixed it. We got the van fixed. It was just me and the roadie because the band was playing with no effects that day, and flying to DC to start. That's where we were starting the U.S. tour with Sick of It All.
So you could have killed the band, but they weren't in the van?
They weren't in the van. I could have killed the other roadie, Steve.
Jesus.
Yeah. He was actually in the bunk in the back.
Jesus.
So he was very susceptible to being crushed.
Yeah.
But they had built these, we called them Hollywood Squares. They built these like bunks.
Sure.
So there was like reinforced wood. Mm-hmm. So that's probably the only reason why Steve is alive. He's doing great. Thank God.
Stay in touch.
He works for some Star Wars .net or one of the Star Wars things up and he's a writer for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Canada. He's a Canadian kid. He's not a kid anymore. But yeah, and we finished that. We did that whole U.S. tour with this broken van. And then they fired me in Canada, we were in Edmonton. They made Russ fire me.
How'd that go?
But they let me finish the tour with them because there were still another 8 or 9 nights that they still had. It was.
How awkward was that conversation? Or you knew it was coming?
I mean, have you spoken with Russ before?
I've not.
Yeah,
but I heard he's a very dry person.
But I mean, I think he understood me probably better than any of them because he suffers from the same, issues that I do with addiction and what have you. And he had already been clean for several years by that time. But I had only been clean for, I was basically a year. I took a year clean with them on that tour. So I had no idea how to act as a human being. I was still drunk all the time, and I mean prior to that year. So I didn't know how to process my feelings and emotions and stuff, so I would just blow up and what you guys saw in was a tail end of that. Me still learning how not to be that guy.
Yeah, several years later.
Yeah. And it still happens on occasion, I suppose, but nowhere near to the regularity.
Have emotions.
Yeah.
Shut yourself down.
Yeah, but yeah. So they fired me. So I came home and then we finished the Burning Dog stuff, and then they called me up and asked if I would do this short tour with them. Because Mario couldn't go, or I can't remember what happened, but like right away I became friends with him again. Within 6 or 7 months or something like that. So, I never stopped being friends with him even on the tour. It was just that I wasn't going to work for them full time anymore. But we became fast friends again, and I have Chuck tattooed on my leg now. You like that?
I do.
Yeah. Yeah. We what else do you want to talk about?
I want to know if there's
recording?
if you think there's anything we didn't touch, Joe. Do you feel like you've been well represented? Yeah. This is what.
How about the Missing 23rd record that I produced with Paul Miner?
Okay. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. What is that?
First one, right?
First one.
Green one.
Powers That Be.
Yeah. Great record.
Yeah.
On Mankind Records from Igby.
From Igby, yeah.
Man with probably the best taste there is, right?
Igby?
Yeah. Plucked out that Missing 23rd. It was, we can talk about a band that just like Nard Curse, right? We haven't really gone on the Nard Curse, but Missing 23rd is a band. And now, when I started, there was a relative gap between Nard and Ventura. They got mended over time. Yeah. A lot because after with In Control and Missing 23rd playing together a lot. Yeah. But they're an underrated band that never got grabbed up, and Igby took a chance on them, and I wish they would have done a lot more, especially that the first record is awesome. The demo is awesome. The demo is fantastic. Awesome, the second demo, the Buck demo, is awesome. So the whole band is great. So you produced the first record. Well, yeah. Produce is a loose term because really most of that was Paul Miner, the great Paul Miner. At that time he was working for the record. This is long before he had Buzzbomb. Yeah, his own studio. We recorded the Stand Your Ground 7-inch with him there. Right. I spilled a 40 all over his chords. I'm sure he was happy about that. Stoked. Moving on. But so I had no idea about engineering, but I knew what they were trying to sound like, and Mike the guitarist from Missing 23rd, Mike had issues. He still has issues communicating what he's trying to do, what he wants to hear, what he wants to say, or anything. So I knew how to help translate what he was trying to get. But he engineered the FAY demo. He did? No, he did one of them. No, he did that. Who did the recording? Forrest did the FAY. Yeah. Remember Drummond used to do? Yeah. Who did he record then? Oh, he did all the Exxon stuff, all the
all the Ventura kit, all Todd Wiesenbacher's bands with Buck, Unabombers, yeah, all that stuff. Kapavi's, Chris Ramsey, and
sorry to sidetrack.
Silence Forever.
You're saying an engineer has trouble telling someone else how he wants to sound. Yeah.
Well, I mean, because it's you doing it, right?
Sure.
So it's your music, and how do I? You can't look at it from an outside perspective. Sure. Your own stuff, and so it's better to have somebody help direct you. Or
so how did you interpret? How did you explain to Paul how they wanted to sound?
Well, I mean, I just helped set up his.
Oh, you tweaking the knobs,
and stuff like that. Yeah.
You didn't say they wanted to sound like a modern Minor Threat.
No, that's what they did sound like, ish. Especially that early stuff.
Sure.
Powers That Be and the demos before that, and then the Control Alt Delete totally took a turn.
Yeah.
Which was another great record too, but but that's also different guys in the band at that time. I mean, always John and Mike, but on the first record it's Mike Gleason playing drums, not Victor yet.
That's right.
So Victor played on the next record, and that was Nick playing bass before Matty was in the band.
Yeah. Resist.
From Resist, yeah, Nick Martinez.
Can't remember. Just
King City Hardcore.
Nick from King City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so anything else you want to brush on, Joe?
No.
You feel like you've been represented?
I guess
you feel people know who Joe Rivas is?
No.
I do. So, all right. This podcast was recorded on March 26th, 2019.